The danger of being agnostic. Stop having a quote-unquote open mind? I consider myself an agnostic atheist, and I'd like to think I have an open mind. All right, I'll bite. Hi, my name is Scarlett, and I'm an atheist and skeptic, and today we are talking about agnosticism and what's wrong with having an open mind. I've seen this Franciscan friar before, Brother Casey. I'm really proud of the fact that I recognize the Franciscan robe. I did learn something from 13 years of Catholic education besides why Catholicism is wrong. Fun fact, cappuccino is named after the color of the monk's robe. Get it? Who says my channel isn't educational? Anywho, Brother Casey here is part of this trend of young Catholic dudes trying to be relatable on the internet. There's that hot priest too. What's his name? Father Mike? Maybe hot is a subjective opinion. I'm getting off topic already. But Friar Casey is such a gentle, calm presence in his videos. But that doesn't mean his content is always worth taking at face value. So enough of the blippity-blab, and let's see what's wrong with having this quote-unquote open mind.
In our world today, there may not be a more important value than having an open mind, or a more hurtful insult than to be called closed-minded. We applaud people that are always asking questions, always seeking, always open to new things, and look down on those who are stuck in their ways, who refuse to change. Frankly,
is this true? I would agree being open-minded is positive. Our old knowledge might be incorrect or outdated, and there might be opportunities and options out there that escaped our detection. Or simply, someone might have a better way of doing things. But I would think that there are other values like empathy, understanding, kindness that might be more important than being open-minded. And I can think of a lot worse than being called closed-minded, but let's see where we're going.
frankly, I think that it might be our most toxic quality, and it's destroying our society.
As they say, that escalated quickly. Apocalyptic much? Being open-minded is not just toxic, but is destroying our society. Yikes, dude, get off the reactionary train.
Let me explain. On the surface, having a so-called open mind is not a bad thing. Removing our biases and preconceived notions, looking at the world as it is rather than how we want it to be, taking in new information and adjusting our opinions, these are all good things.
Cool, I agree. Not much more to add. I'm just relieved we aren't talking about the apocalypse right now.
Good things. What I love about the idea of an open mind is the desire to always be seeking and learning. Especially as a Christian, I know that 1,000 lifetimes could never exhaust all that there is to learn about the unimaginable mystery that is God and the beauty and wonder of His creation.
I do like the learning part, but the term God's creation needs more clarification. Like, why did you decide God exists at all? And how did you decide that we are part of a creation, much less one that God did? But let's not get bogged down. I want to hear about the dangers of being agnostic.
To sit back, unimpressed, to be content with where we are, seems like a sin against the gift of reason that God has given us. Seeking is a good thing. Wondering is a virtue. Welcoming new information is essential for all Christians.
Again, we are assuming our reason comes from God, and I'm curious why seeking new information is essential for Christians who supposedly just have to go to the Bible to get said information. Yeah, I know Friar Casey is a Catholic and Catholics don't have to read the Bible. I mean, I did when I was growing up because the church decided back then we should do that. But also Catholics could ask the Pope and he can put out a bull. I think they're called bulls, right? The Catholic Pope puts out bulls. I might have that wrong. But anyway, he makes statements. He transmits God's messages to the masses. Okay, I'm back on a tangent. Let's go back. What is wrong with being an agnostic?
We must have an open mind to all that is true, beautiful, and good so that we ourselves may be transformed by all that is true, beautiful, and good. I don't have a problem with any of this. No.
So, not so much toxic then. All that tearing our society apart, that was just introductory clickbait. Is that such a thing, introduction clickbait? I am coining that if it's not. But okay. Being open-minded is good, but you still have 5 minutes of video, so...
No, the problem I have with much of our world is not that it insists on an open mind per se. It's that it never allows for an open mind to reach a conclusion.
What? What are you talking about? First off, People reach conclusions all the time. Some people ignorantly yell out their conclusions on the social medias and the YouTubes. The world will let you reach a conclusion. Frankly, the world doesn't even care if you do.
Tell someone that you're a seeker, that you're someone who stares out over the ocean and wonders how it all came to be and where we're all going, and people think that you're deep and interesting. Tell someone that you're a Christian, that you believe that the ocean and all of creation are the works of God and that everything should fulfill its purpose in giving God glory. Well, you know the response. How can you know this? What arrogance? Who are you to tell me that my ideas are wrong?
Okay, so this got a little Christian persecutey right there. Of course, there's just so much wrong. By the way, I note the painting centered behind him is from German romanticist Caspar Friedrich, Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, and now I understand why it's there. That's our agnostic, that's the person doubting. Right. Anyway, for myself, a person who is staring at the ocean, vaguely wondering where we're going, without really looking into it and doing any study, is not deep. I usually just think that's someone like on vacation. But I want to examine what he said again. When someone tells you they are a Christian and everything comes from God, people's response is, how can you know that? Who are you to tell me my ideas are wrong? So first off, those are two different things. To ask you why you believe, why you do, and then that you're trying to convince me, those are different things. And I usually don't think that. People who tell me they're Christians and don't want to proselytize or even really talk about their beliefs, I just leave alone. But if you tell me that everything comes from God and therefore you are justified in teaching that as scientific fact, I might ask you to back your claims up. Or if you tell me that I have to accept that God is responsible for everything, I'm going to ask you for some evidence. That's how telling someone what to believe works.
As a society, we value minds that question, but belittle minds that claim to have answers to questions.
No idea what you're talking about, mate. I like hearing people's answers to questions. That doesn't mean I accept them. It depends. But if you're an expert working in a field and you tell me your findings, I'm curious. Tell me what you found out. What conclusions have you reached in your work? Has Friar Casey actually spent much time out here on the social medias? People be full of all kinds of conclusions out here, and some people are like, cool, and other people are like, why?
I think of it a lot like the cliche often attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's not the destination that matters, but the journey. At first, it seems wise. It reminds us that how we get somewhere matters, that we should care about the process, the ways, and the means. And that's true. We don't want to lie or cheat to get somewhere. We don't want to get to our destination having lost ourselves along the way. For what good would the destination be at that point? But the opposite is true as well. What good is a journey if we never actually reach a destination? If we never even have a destination in mind? If all we do is wander around forever, never reaching a place better than where we started? The journey is not all that matters. That's ridiculous.
I usually think of that aphorism as applied to our lives. Our life is the journey, and we shouldn't be so focused on the destination, death, because then we'd fail to live our lives. And as an atheist, to me, it is all journey, because the destination means the end of my consciousness, and therefore to anything I'm doing, thinking, existing, whatever. Christians obviously are banking on this life being like a savings account for the afterlife. So it doesn't escape me that for Casey here, this life actually is less important. It's all about the destination. But let's not dwell on this. I want to hear about the dangers of being agnostic that I was promised, and potentially the destruction of society.
The destination is the purpose and fulfillment of a journey. While there may obviously be enjoyment along the way and lessons learned on the road, the reason we set out in the first place is not for journeying itself, but to get somewhere. When I look at our world, what I see...
Yeah, it's true that when we travel in this life, we are going somewhere, but we will be conscious of where we are when we get there too. And in this metaphor, that destination can still be considered part of the journey. I'll still be traveling until I get home, and then home can still be part of the journey, etc., etc. So yeah, there are destinations, and those destinations can also be part of a journey. I guess what I'm trying to say is the destination is kind of like stops along a journey. But again, the main metaphor being about life, the point is don't get so focused on the destination, the end of your life, that you lose all of this, the life that you have, in pointlessness. especially if, as I believe, death is the end of our consciousness. You won't be around to think about what your life meant or what you did. It won't have served any purpose other than to be itself.
What I see is a society that is always on the road but never getting anywhere. It insists that people head out on a journey, that it asks deep questions, ponder life's mysteries, keep an open mind, but never get anywhere. Those who reach their destination, who stand by an answer, who say that they have found what they are looking for and do not want to journey any longer, are scoffed at and belittled.
So first, are they? I just don't see this. But I have to say, I think what Casey is confused by is that everything is always changing. The world will never settle into one thing. Eastern philosophy really delves into this hard, that everything is in flux, always shifting, always changing, like the weather. To think that everyone everywhere is just going to settle into this is the way things are forever is to misunderstand how the world works. But individuals do stop and say, this is it for me. By the way, the people that I think get the most pushback are the ones who want to force others to adhere to their beliefs, or who don't accept that they believe differently, or they want to force people to be different from who they are. But maybe people like Casey interpret a refusal to accept his beliefs as some kind of insult from the world. I could probably go more into this, but we have a few more minutes of video, and we haven't even gotten to the agnostic part yet.
While there is always a need for intellectual humility and we should be cautious of speaking dogmatically about every little thing, the idea of living life without any dogmas, without any moral imperatives, without any belief that is beyond change, is a life that doesn't stand for anything.
Well, I, for one, would prefer a life without dogma. More dogs, less dogma, please. But I think either Friar Casey is confused or he wants to confuse us. But anyway, I see several problems. One, it is one thing to have values like kindness, empathy, compassion, ambition, and so on, and preferences for how we want to spend our time, and another to decide how the world works based on some intuition we have. Our values and preferences are literally opinions, and we generally have to do a little juggling and maneuvering to work out the tensions that are in there. But scientific knowledge could, and often does, defy our intuitions, and it can get outdated. So to really stop taking in new information on how the world works means we might base our decisions on bad information. The second thing, we can come to temporary conclusions. We can say, this is what is true or likely true, but I can reevaluate later. I think Friar Casey really wants some solidity in everything. And for him, both his values and his ideas about science come from his religion and his understanding of God. I'm not saying he's a creationist, by the way, because Catholics tend to accept science. It's just they think God is doing it all. But it's all just wrapped up, is what I'm saying. Probably, though, he's just upset that some people tell him they don't accept his answers, and they have their own thank you very much.
The dirty truth of the matter is that nobody actually lives this way. As much as people demand open minds and decry any sense of dogma, there isn't a person on earth that doesn't hold some truth beyond questioning.
Just want to interject that it is true that generally people do come to conclusions about some aspects of the world, and some conclusions may get revised later. Being open-minded doesn't mean you never come to conclusions on some things.
Are we to keep an open mind about genocide, always giving an opportunity for the other side to convince us otherwise? No. Must we?
Just want to point out that we have in fact been open-minded about genocide and have decided, based on values aligned with humanism, that genocide is bad. However, the Bible seems to think genocide is fine if you're taking the land of milk and honey for Yahweh's people, and there are plenty of Christians who will defend the genocides that occur in the Bible. So, some people are open-minded about genocide.
No. Must we stay open to the idea that the Earth may actually be flat? That NASA and every scientist in the world for the past 2,500 years has been involved in a conspiracy? Please. Should we?
So now we've jumped from values to science, and I just have to point out that we can, in fact, be open-minded about flat Earth. And I think it would take us a second to point and laugh. The deal is here, we would take in evidence of a scientific nature and see what model best fits it, and then we can move on with our life. I do think it's a waste to consider it further once we've examined the evidence. Unless we take a sick joy in listening to some of the dumbest exemplars of humans who have expensive cameras and mics and enough time to make 3-hour rambles about the Illuminati and hiding God behind the dome. CC from Westchester County, you are a gem, never change.
Should we treat the love we receive from our parents, spouse, siblings, and friends with skepticism, mindful of the fact that we cannot know for sure if they're being honest, and so should protect ourselves in case they're lying? I hope not.
I do think we've gone to the ridiculous now. I guess Casey thinks being open-minded means we have to consider all possibilities at all times about all things, and that's just not how our brains work. It is a lot of work cognitively to constantly examine every option. We don't do that. If people in our life are treating us well generally, we have no reason to worry our brains that this is some grand deception. There are people, by the way, in abusive family situations to whom this might apply. There's physical and emotional abuse, and sometimes the abuse and toxicity are not obvious at first, and it takes some work to uncover. So some people do have to look at this. But in general, no, if people are treating you well, we're done. We don't have to think about it. But going back to an image Casey brought up early on, someone staring at the sea and wondering what it's all about, that is not what we usually mean by open-minded. We don't mean constantly reevaluate everything, think of every possibility, and never discard useless or wrong concepts. No, open-mindedness means when new information comes along, you consider it. You don't discard it immediately. You might discard it once you've really evaluated it, but you consider it first. By the way, when are we going to get to the dangers of agnosticism?
The fact of the matter is that there are certain things in life we have to either accept or not accept. Some things have a mountain of evidence to support them, making doubt more difficult, while other things must be accepted simply on intuition, but the point remains. Eventually, we have to choose one way or another.
Let's just make sure we are putting everything in the correct domain. Some things require evidence. That includes ideas about how the physical world works, but it can also be about our relationships. The evidence is different, of course, but I can see how people are behaving to determine how they feel. That's that evidence. As for intuitions, I think I would prefer to say we have values and preferences, not so much intuition. And I agree, we do not need to sift constantly through old evidence, but we should also be open to new evidence, like a new scientific discovery or a friend who starts acting differently. But please, Friar Casey, please get to the agnosticism, please. I feel we're close.
Do we believe or do we not? To journey our entire lives without reaching a destination, to seek and to ask without ever coming to a conclusion, is a sad, uncourageous life.
Okay, so belief. Are we talking about belief in God? It's not specified. Because agnosticism is not about belief, but knowledge. Now, there are some agnostics out there that like to play the I don't really want to decide if I believe or not game. I know some of them. But I consider myself an agnostic atheist. I am right now in the I don't believe camp. I'm still out here open to new evidence. If you have some, I'm waiting. Brother Casey, I was once a Catholic like you. I even got confirmed K through 12 Catholic school. So, if you got some, please bring it. And I don't know how courageous it is to believe in something or not. I tend to think if you have values and you're afraid to live them out because you're afraid of what someone says, that's not courageous. But if you're agnostic, like super yawn.
To remain open to everything is to attain nothing.
Wow, slap that on a board and put it on your wall next to live, love, laugh.
Nothing. At some point, we have to take the risk, even if just temporarily, and make a claim.
I'm glad you said temporarily. And it shows me you're capable of understanding how to human. But we don't need to make a claim, especially if we don't believe in your God. I can say that evidence doesn't convince me. Still a non-believer. But Brother Casey wins the award today for Shifter of Burden of Proof. Congratulations.
What a waste to live your entire life as an agnostic. Sure, you're never going to be outright wrong, but you're never going to have a chance of being right either. You're never going to find fulfillment, purpose, direction, or any sense of meaning if you remain open to everything.
Finally, we got to being agnostic. So being agnostic is a waste, eh? You know what I think is a waste? Expecting any theist to provide good evidence for their God belief. All we get are these silly syllogisms. Syllogisms? There's a meme in there. And emotional manipulations about how maybe if we don't believe in God, we also think our mom doesn't love us. I know Casey has created a whole life around his deity, but almost no one lives their life like that. Even when I was a Catholic, my life was full of school and music and interests and friends. Most Christians I know today have a whole life that really has nothing to do with God belief. And over the course of my life, my values have shifted. I've had different roles, different jobs. I'm actually in a second marriage. I've had different interests. I can land on one meaning and purpose today, and in 5 years, I can feel like I'm in a different place and make changes. You said yourself, Brother Casey, a moment ago, we can land temporarily on our values, our beliefs, and our understanding of the world, right now. And I can decide there are some options I never need to reconsider because they're settled. And yet, I can remain open to new information. And then I just look at my cats sometimes, and they seem to have great lives without thinking any of these thoughts.
What a waste to live your entire life not sure if your partner is the one. Sure, you're never going to be heartbroken, never have to deal with a messy divorce, but you're also never going to experience the sort of love that comes only with commitment and vulnerability.
Why is this your go-to? Is it because of your commitment to the church? Look, once again, we can decide this is the person we want to be with, and we can think it will be for life. Maybe it will be, maybe it won't. Let me just say first that deciding how anyone wants to organize their family/intimate life is a personal choice that people should make in alignment with their values and preferences. Some people may want to get married, and some people may want to have children and be married or not be married. Some people may want no partner. I mean, asexuals exist, hello. And some people may want multiple partners. For me, informed consent and mutual respect need to be guiding hallmarks of how we decide our relationships. Second, I do think marriage is a more serious commitment and it should be entered into because you think you want to spend your life with this person. But if circumstances change and the relationship doesn't work for some reason, people should be able to end it. But to conclude, we can make a decision today that can be reevaluated later. It isn't, don't be in a relationship ever at all with anyone, or be with this person till death do you part, amen.
We could continue down this line of thinking for everything. A career choice, vocational discernment, political positions, which movie to watch on Netflix. With every decision in life, the end goal must always be to actually make a decision.
I don't know, man. Have you ever scrolled through Netflix? I'm not sure making a choice is the goal.
It begins with an open mind. It starts with seeking, questioning, removing biases, doing everything you can to come to the truth. But at some point, you must come to the realization that you will never have enough information, that you will never exhaust everything that can be learned, but must make a decision anyway. Now, I'm not...
Lots of truth here, and yes, sometimes we do just need to settle on a decision. Except for the Netflix. Fuck you, Netflix, and your endless scrolling. That's all I'll say. But Casey acts like this is the end of the road. Once you've decided, there's no going back. And as I have said over and over, that's just not the case. You can decide something today, come to a conclusion today, and tomorrow, or in 5 years, you can change that.
Now, I'm not suggesting that we must make a dogmatic decision about everything, or that we should never change our minds once we've decided something. There is a sense in which an open mind is still a very good thing.
Now you say this, and I've been pointing this out and exhausting myself. Dude, what is this rambling you've been doing for almost 6 minutes?
What I'm suggesting is simply that an open mind is a means to an end, not the end itself. It is the thing that gets us where we're going, not a quality of a good person.
You know, it occurs to me that people say open-mindedness is the quality of a good person because they're open to other people's experiences. They can be empathetic to people who are different from them. And I wonder if this whole thing isn't really about agnostics, but acceptance of LGBTQ plus people, you know, being open to the idea that they aren't craven sinners. Or maybe Casey's just mad because people don't take his word for it when he says God is responsible for a pretty sunset. Who can know?
The irony of being open to everything, of never settling on anything in particular, is that you'll never actually know when you found the right or wrong answer. We must be willing to take risks, to put ourselves out there, to stand for something rather than be open to everything. Maybe we'll come to realize that we were wrong, but at least we'll have found something and we'll be closer to our ultimate destination than when we started. Commit to something. You may never know the right or wrong answer beyond a shadow of a doubt, but what sort of life is it if you never even try?
Well, there we go. You want to know one thing I'm sorry about? That I committed to this video. That I said, here is the one for me. Talk about a load of blippity-blab. I guess the point is, agnostics need to fish or cut bait. I think I've made my point about how people do come to tentative conclusions and remain open-minded. I do think there's a good point in saying, don't be so open-minded your brain falls out. But, skepticism is not about never coming to conclusions. It's about basing beliefs off good evidence. Among the points that bothers me in this presentation is the mixing of everything together, as if our conclusions are reached in the same way on all things. So, believing in God is on par with accepting that our loved ones actually love us, or accepting scientific theories, or having moral values. There are key differences to how we decide things. So, a value like caring for people is not the same as coming to an understanding of the theory of evolution, or accepting that the people in our lives care about us is different from choosing a career or a life partner. But here's what it comes down to. There is no good evidence for God, and there may never be. And Casey is saying it right here in this video. But you should choose anyway, he thinks, because it's courageous or something. Of course, I don't think he's really talking to real agnostics because he doesn't really address agnosticism. This is about preaching to the choir again, comforting believers that they are correct, and the danger of agnosticism is tempting God's wrath. I find it interesting, though, that believers of all kinds lump all these different categories together, our values, our preferences, scientific knowledge, our emotional lives, is because God and their religion is such an organizational principle in their mind that they confuse all these things and present them as if they are the same, or do they want to confuse us? By the way, I never understood how open-mindedness is destroying our society. Brother Casey must have forgotten about that part of his thesis. All I can say is, stay curious, my friends, make your decisions for today, but on the morrow, fear not to reevaluate. Well, what did you think of all of this about agnosticism and its dangers and making decisions and whatnot? Put it in the comments below, and while you're down there, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube stuffing. Algorithmo and his consort Algorithmo will bless you with all wonderful recommendations if you do the YouTube stuffing. If you like what I do, you can buy me a coffee. That link is also in the description below. And I will see you next time for something. Don't know what it'll be. It'll probably be stupid, though. Bye for now.